Airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am an American Airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail.
I missed it coming on that one. It was a double beat. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's Air Force Recruiting Services only live stream, The Back and Forth. We have got a show for you today. Oh my goodness. This is one of the cool ones. Really, really cool ones. So today we're talking about all things SEAR. And that sounds a little weird for what it actually stands for. And that's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Those are pretty intense words, right? So that program, it will basically teach military members how to survive in hostile environments, teaches them how to survive in the wilderness, how to escape capture or how to evade being captured. If you are captured, how to escape, how to deal with interrogation and coercion and stuff like that. Some really, really intense and cool training. And we've got a subject matter expert with us that we will join later in the show who is an actual SERE specialist. So he's going to help us answer all those questions that are specific to the SERE training program. And then later in the show, we'll introduce our recruiter and we'll get all our Air Force questions knocked out as well. But first, we've got a video that we want to show you guys. And this video may not be SERE, but there are a couple cool Easter eggs in this one. This is going to have a shout out to one of our Total Force partners, so keep an eye out for that. It's going to have some really cool information on the opportunities that are available to you. Just like if you are interested in doing SERE, our character in this video was interested in doing something different, and this is going to show her journey and kind of how she was able to secure that and also do what she wanted to do with her personal life and also her military life as well. So without further ado, and then her career as a civilian is pretty sweet, and that's going to be an Easter egg, something else in the show. So stay tuned. You're going to want to keep on that one. So without that, let's go play that video.
When I joined the Air National Guard, it has really given me the opportunity to grow as a person, to become a leader. You sign up and 6 years became 10, which became 12, which became where I'm at now in my career, and turns out I really enjoy doing this job. As a Loadmaster, most of these missions, you don't really know what you're going to be getting. So a lot of the times we might be loading rolling stock, which would be Humvees or anything with wheels. And part of my job is knowing the numbers of what can go where and the maximum capabilities of the aircraft and the best way to strap it down so it won't move. And it's your job to figure out, how am I going to get this on or off the aircraft. So in my civilian career, I am a Charlotte fireman. And that's where I met my husband. And he's a fireman as well. And his dad was a fireman and his uncle was a fireman. And hearing stories about what they did, I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. I have a very fun family. So my daughter is 5 years old. She's in kindergarten. She's not one to sit still. She's going 100 miles per hour from the time that she wakes up to the time that she goes to bed. We'll play games, or we'll look through old photographs, or ride in our four-wheeler around the property and take that time to be close to each other. The Air National Guard, you kind of get to choose what you want to do if you're available to do that position, and you can work part-time and give as much as you want to give into it, but either way you choose, you can have a part-time job outside of here. There were 3 things that I knew I wanted to do when I was younger. One was go to college, I also wanted to travel, and I wanted to be a fireman. Luckily enough, the Air National Guard allows me to do all 3. I am Master Sergeant Madeline Hefner, and I am a Loadmaster in the Air National Guard.
That one is hard not to just smile through. About halfway through, you really start to get that family aspect and what it means to her to serve kind of her way. with the ability to do her civilian job and also what she wants to do in the military as well. So super, super, super cool stuff. And keep an eye out for those Easter eggs that I was talking about. But without further ado, I would like to introduce everyone to Senior Airman Ware. He is our SEAR specialist. Welcome to the show, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your Air Force journey, kind of where you started and where you're at now, and then what made you want to become a SEAR specialist?
Well, thank you, first off, for having me on, Sergeant S.E.R.E. That's a long story. I guess I'm going to try to shorten up because this show's only an hour long. But I grew up in Northern California and was really into sports as a young man. I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Southern California and having a privilege to play football there in their heyday with Pete Carroll as our head coach and playing a couple of national championship games when I was there in 2004, 2005. Ended up getting picked up by the Philadelphia Eagles out of college and bounced around the NFL and ended up on the Colts practice squad for a little bit of time and eventually got cut there and played football until I was about 27 years old, smaller professional leagues. And that led me into personal training. So I did personal training for another 10 years. And when COVID hit, they shut down all the gyms out in California. So I called up my Air Force recruiter and I asked him what jobs they have available. He told me about SERE. So that's a very long story short there, and went through basic military training at 37 years old. Was obviously a dorm chief there of my dormitory. And that was a fun experience, and then dove right into SEAR selection down here in San Antonio right after that. It was a 3-week process. I was selected from there, went up to Fairchild in Washington, went through all the courses that we teach up there, and then the indoctrination course for SEAR specialists before starting our 5.5-month pipeline up there. That was an amazing, challenging experience for me. I was fortunate enough to get selected then as a first assignment SEAR specialist trainer and was sent right back down to San Antonio to work at our selection schoolhouse down here. So that's the very long story short for you.
That is a whole lot of story and very short. I gotta applaud you for being able to put all of that into like a minute and a half. And I gotta stop you. We got a whole show to talk about SEAR, but we just were in the pre-show for almost an entire hour getting stuff ready for the show, which for everybody out there, it takes a ton of work and a ton of prep and a ton of things to make this look as good as it does every week or every month that we do it. But we made it through that entire time, and you didn't mention a single thing about what you did before the Air Force, and that's not something I was expecting. I'm not gonna lie. So, wow, that like I'm sitting here, I'm like, maybe you just are bigger than you look in the shot. Like, the NFL players are big dudes. Like, how does what you did for football?
It's the OCPs, you know.
Oh, there you go. The OCPs. That is awesome. 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 All right. Well, I'm going to have to figure out how to like stay away from answering questions that wrap all that stuff in there. But that's a pretty cool background story. And I thought I joined a little later. I joined when I was 25, but joining when you're 37, that's a commitment point. You got to realize, your body's not getting any younger at that point. And to decide to start a career like that, that can be physically demanding that'll definitely keep you in check for a while. So good on you. That's awesome. All right. So I'm going to jump directly into like a super deep question. And this one kind of deals with some of the programs that SEAR directly supports. But I want to know how SEAR fits into the Guardian Angel program, which is a pretty cool program. So if you could explain what that is and then explain how SEAR makes that program successful and what SEAR's role is there.
Sure, I'll do my best to answer that for you. So the Guardian Angel program is basically the ground portion of personnel recovery. So it consists of pararescue, combat rescue officers, and then SEAR specialists. And our role as SEAR specialists stateside is to prepare pilots and air crew, anyone that's at high risk of isolation for the potential that they're having a really bad day and end up on the ground in hostile territory. But then we also are involved with the planning process for personnel recovery, because no mission can go off without having personnel recovery factored in before it
Right.
happens. And then if something bad does happen, we would be the person on the other side of the radio when that isolated person makes a call, and would be speaking directly to that person.
Okay. So you basically incorporate into those special warfare guys to make sure that they have the training and make sure that their programs run in case the day goes bad, right?
Absolutely. And then, yes, of course, taking into account that the first rule of personnel recovery is not to create more personnel recovery. So making sure that those guys are prepared if that happens. And then I almost forgot the last part, which is the reintegration process as well. So when we do get people back, SERE specialists are the lead for reintegrating them and getting them back to active duty.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, that makes sense, because like the whole point of SERE is to help someone survive a situation, right? And to give them the tools and the training that they need to survive a situation, whatever it may be. And then if they actually have to put that training to use, there is that side of reintegration of what happens when you come back, and kind of debriefing and figuring stuff out and doing all that stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. Next question. This is actually kind of a common one that we've seen from our audience out there today is, are women allowed to be SERE specialists?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We get women coming through our pipeline. It's certainly lower in numbers than the male population coming through, but the graduation rate I would estimate to be about the same for attrition for females coming through as it is for males. But they are held to the same standards that all of our male SERE specialists are, and have all the same struggles that the males have, and are integral parts. I believe that in the last 40 years or so that we put through at least 45 female SERE specialists that
Oh, wow.
have made it through the whole training pipeline and have become active SERE specialists.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What did you personally enjoy the most about your experience with the SERE specialist pipeline, like that training pipeline? What was your favorite part of it?
Well, there's a lot of cool stuff. Not a whole lot of it is fun while you're in it, but a lot of it's really cool to look back on when you're done with it.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite aspects is being a 6'2", 220-pound guy. Evasion is pretty tough for me. And so all of the evasion phases that we went through, whether it was urban evasion or if it was escape and evasion, hiding out in the woods, it was a pretty cool aspect. And it's like a really high stakes game of hide and seek, where if you get caught, you have a really, really bad day. And I enjoyed the heck out of that. It was a good time.
That's funny. It's funny you put it that way too, because it's like, yeah, that's 6'2". That's a lot of human body to hide. If you got like very little to hide behind, or if you're in the woods, or, if you're especially in an urban environment, unless you just found a room that no one knows where it's at, like good luck blending in at 6'2". So that's cool. All right. So flip side of that one, what was the hardest part about SERE training? And then how did you personally deal with it?
Oh, good question. The hardest aspect for me was probably I was used to, from my sports background, having really good nutrition, having a good night's rest in the best hotel, and then being asked to perform at the highest level. Sure. And in SERE, it's the opposite of that. You get very small amounts of nutrition and things that you're not used to eating, and you don't get very good sleep, if any sleep at all, and then you still have to perform at an extremely high level. So that was tough to get through, but most of it's just mental grit, and I think it pushes you to that point that you don't think you can go past, and then you go a little bit further than that, which is an awesome experience to have, to know that you can do things that you never thought you were capable of with very little.
Yeah. How much time does it take the typical person to complete the SERE training pipeline?
So from start to finish, it's approximately 1 year. and that varies based on the timing of when you come in. But between the selection process and then PCSing up to Fairchild, going through all the courses that we teach up there. So going through underwater egress, going through water survival, emergency parachute training, and then going out to the woods, getting resistance training, going through indoctrination. That's about 6 months. And then you have the actual pipeline itself, which is another 5.5 months on top of that, with a large number of different training phases in that.
So when you're going from a lifestyle of being very cognizant of what you're putting in your mouth for food and where you're sleeping and how you're taking care of your body, to going to an entire, well, the better part of a year without those luxuries, I can imagine that would be a challenging thing for someone who's as dedicated to, healthy eating and healthy living, especially as a, high level athlete like that. So I completely believe that that's the case for sure. Like you saw on the graphic, everybody out there on the internet land, there is a chat box. Go ahead and throw your questions in there. We love to see your comments in there as well. Shout out, say hi to everybody. But if you've got a question for myself or any of my guests, put a Q in the chat in front of your question. That way we know which ones are questions, and we can throw them into our bucket of questions, and we will put those on later in the show in probably 15 minutes or so. So keep those comments coming, keep the questions coming in, and we'll lock all those things down as soon as we get to that part of the show. So I appreciate you, and I see you in the chat. So thank you. I'm going to get back to another question for you. This one's kind of like an interesting one for me, because there's a difference between these two things, and I think there's a bit of confusion out there. What is the difference between a SERE graduate and a SERE specialist? Because I'm a SERE graduate, but I don't have nearly the level of training that you do. So what's the difference between the two?
Sure. A SERE graduate is someone who goes through the classes that we teach up at Fairchild. So you go through the water survival, you go through emergency parachuting, you go through resistance training, and then you go out to the woods. And some don't even do all of that. And that happens for us before we start our training. So nice. That's like the baseline to get in, basically. And then we further dive into core survival skills. We do a 9-day navigation phase out in the woods, traveling every single day. We do high angle rescue. We do a lot of teaching phases. And then we go out to each and every biome, and we learn how to survive in each of those biomes, incorporating personnel recovery in every aspect of it.
That's cool.
And then at that point, then we teach. Then we are the teachers for those that go through SERE school. Okay,
cool. What are some of the attributes that you've seen, some of the characteristics that make a good SERE specialist? Something you've seen in other SERE specialists that that stand out as good qualities, things that would make a good specialist of them?
Sure. I would say, good SERE candidates and SERE specialists are just built different. They're comfortable being uncomfortable. They have a high level of grit, a high level of integrity. Attention to detail is extremely important in there as well. They work well as a team. And then, everything that we learn, we have to be able to teach to others. So you have to work well with other people and know how to translate the things that you've learned throughout the process to others. And those are the big things that we're looking for in any SERE candidate.
Gotcha. Sounds to me like you just said tough communicators. People that have the ability to withstand some pretty nasty situations, but also have the ability to communicate that as well outward toward other people as an instructor, because at the end of the day, your job is to be a teacher. So, right. So how do SERE specialists figure out how to kind of incorporate different scenarios and allow them to work in a way that lets them prepare aircrew members or people who need SERE training? Like what part of the training that you receive actually gets trickled down to those members? Like what kind of, is it the areas or the specifics of like how to do certain stuff? Because obviously you're training how to do the basics, right? You say you start your real training once you graduate, where your students will have effectively finished. But then you start learning how to teach other people how to do that. So what of that gets carried over, and what do you teach from your baseline, and what do you teach from the stuff that comes after that as a SERE instructor?
Right, that's a good question. And it's highly dependent on where you're working. So if you are up at Fairchild, you're going to be incorporating all of the lessons that you've learned throughout the pipeline and throughout your further training in urban evasion scenarios, in evasion scenarios out in the woods, and imparting that knowledge on your students there. But we also work at the base level as well. So we'll work at operational support squadrons, at special tactics squadrons, at rescue squadrons. And then what we teach at that level is highly dependent on who we're working with, what kind of environment they're going to be operating in, and what kind of missions they'll be running. So we cater it to the individuals that we are teaching.
Gotcha. Very cool. Next question has to do with, it's kind of an interesting take, because a lot of times when SERE specialists are instructing, they're pretty pared down. You got one instructor, maybe another instructor if there's like some training going on. But most of the time it's small number of SERE instructors or SERE specialists out with these groups of trainees that are learning how to be a SERE graduate. But as a larger scope, how does teamwork play into SERE training, like specifically between different branches of the military?
Sure. We work primarily in joint environments. So when we deploy and we're under a combatant command, we're working hand in hand with Army, naval aviators, as well as coalition forces. So it's important for us to be able to work together with all of our.
It looks like you got a phone call. So one of the situations that we get to deal with is when we have someone who's calling in as a guest for our show on a phone. Sometimes they get phone calls, and sometimes the phone bumps them back over to the other side of the call. So we've got him back now, and let's jump back into it. Welcome back to the show. We are going to kind of kick back to the beginning of that question. I'm just going to start it over. We're talking about teamwork inside SERE and what that looks like between different military branches. I'm hoping you can hear me.
I'll start from the top. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So in a deployed environment, working under a combatant command, we're primarily working in a joint capacity. So we're working hand in hand with Army aviators, naval aviators, you name it, we're working with them. So it's extremely important that we can work together with them when it comes to recovering someone. It's not just going to be the Air Force that could potentially go and pick them up. So
sure.
We rely heavily on our sister services to do the work that we do as well. And really it just comes down to whoever can get there first and whoever can get that person back home safely as quick as possible. We will definitely make use of their capabilities. So teamwork is extremely important in that capacity.
Gotcha. That's a great answer. All right. This next one's going to tie definitely back into that stuff that you did before you joined the military. But this question is, I think, relevant to it as well. So what from your past, like your past life, prepared you for specifically your career field that you chose? I mean, aside from the nutrition and stuff like that, but like, was there anything mental or physical that you think set you up for success there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. My sports background helped me certainly physically prepare for it and make sure that I was in the best shape possible so that I could focus solely on the learning that I had to do and not have to worry about the physical aspect of things, but really the mental fortitude that I had built and the ability to bounce back from failures, from losses, and recover from those and get right back to work, because that's an aspect that is integral in our training. Is you're not going to be great at everything, and you're going to struggle with things. And how do you respond to that? That's the real question.
No, I love it. That's awesome. That's like blending a little bit of the background personal, but also taking it, because like we were chatting earlier, the military doesn't a lot of times want you to bring a whole bunch of experience into something that they're going to have to teach you that's intense, right? So they want you to basically have a clean slate or be ready to have a clean slate so they can teach you the basics and then build from there. But it sounds like some of the stuff you brought in was actually beneficial, and that's really, really cool. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen out there, it is time in the show where we bring in our recruiter subject matter expert. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Master Sergeant Hetrick. Thank you for joining us, sir. Let's go there. There we go. Welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, literally and figuratively, because if you remember the Easter egg from the beginning of the show, there was maybe something in that video that might be in Sergeant Hetrick's background. So welcome to the show, sir. Background time. Mike's yours.
Hey, sir. Thanks. I really appreciate being here, and it's been awesome hearing Airman Ware going on so far. So, Master Sergeant Hetrick, I work at Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. I'm superintendent for Special Warfare Branch, which includes all of our recruiting services, the 330th, all the enlisted accessions recruiters. We all try to go after these special candidates, like we see here in Airman Ware, being a SEAR specialist. So that's where I'm at. A little bit of background about me. Like he said, that little nugget with her as a civilian firefighter. I joined the Air Force to be a firefighter.
That's cool.
But let me backtrack a little bit, because I also didn't come in right out of high school. I came in a little later. Not too far out, but I graduated in 2003, and then 2006, I finally figured out what I wanted to do with my life. And I contribute that to the first recruiter that I knew, and that was my dad. Not really an AFSC recruiter, but he was actually a TI. But he taught me about the Air Force, and growing up as an Air Force kid, being able to live and experience other cultures everywhere else, Japan, Guam, Hawaii, being stateside, all the places that we've been to, New Mexico, Texas, California, was the greatest recruiter for me. And it wasn't until I realized what the heck I was doing until I joined the Air Force in 2006. Because prior to that, I was working at Walmart, pushing carts, doing all these things, working as a cashier, building bikes. And then I started selling cars, and I got burnt out. I was working so many hours, not getting very much pay. And then finally my dad was like, and he never pushed it at all until finally he said, "Hey man, you ever thought about joining the Air Force?" And I was like, you know what? I used to go and hang out with him all the time at his office. And I was like, you know what? And then it flashed back like, dang, that could be me. I could be like my dad. And let's see what it's all about. So I joined the Air Force 2006, was a firefighter, went to San Angelo, Texas, where the fire academy is. Mm-hmm. That was a great opportunity. I figured out I was going to Eglin Air Force Base, spent 6.5 years there. That is one of the most busiest bases for firefighting ever. I mean, I was at a station where we ran fires. I mean, I fought every kind of fire that you can imagine.
Sure.
Even fires on a yacht, industrial buildings, mobile homes, car fires, all kinds of stuff, right?
Sure. I got a quick question for you. I got to just real quick. What's the difference between being a firefighter in the Air Force and being a firefighter in civilian life? Like, I've heard that they're kind of interchangeable, but what's the difference?
They are. They're interchangeable, but there are also more advantages to being an Air Force firefighter, because the level of responsibility that you get is you get it a lot quicker, right? For instance, after 6 years, I was a captain. So I was running a truck, first engine out on scene, incident commander, I can take control of an entire scene at being 5 years in the service, right?
Sure.
But we build up all these skills because of the schoolhouse in San Angelo. They teach us all those things, and we get to go back and we get to get additional training and get I've been rescue certified, all kinds of certifications, hazmat, WMD, like all kinds of stuff. In the civilian sector, they don't really get to experience a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
And then the timeline to promote is a lot slower, but.
Gotcha. So it sounds like a lot of the stuff that's specific to DoD, so things like you said that are more in line with what we might have to deal with as a military branch, are things that are considered in the training that the civilian side may not have. But as far as like TTPs or whatever you do as your normal daily operations, or the way you respond to a traditional commercial fire or residential fire or something like that, those are all pretty much the same. Because I've actually seen Air Force fire trucks go off base and help the local fire department put out fires that are in the community. And that's really cool to see, because that's like not many of our other agencies are able to do that, right? You can just see them go out and do their job in the community. That's just awesome to see. Like that's volunteership, I think, at like the highest level. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. Okay, so I actually want to give a shout out to everybody out there right now. I know we've got Sergeant Hetrick now on the call, and we also have Airman Ware that we talked to for a little while earlier in the show. But make sure that if you've got questions specific for recruiting, right? So anything that you've got that you would want to ask a recruiter, that's what Sergeant Hetrick is here for, and he is going to take that experience that he has as a recruiter and answer any questions that you guys have specific to any Air Force journey, not just necessarily SERE, but we'll keep all those SERE questions as well, and we'll let Airman Ware answer those ones. So once we get him back on the call, we'll jump into the part of the show where we let your questions come up on the screen. But before we do that, I got one more question for you, and it does tie into the firefighter thing. The reason I asked is because the difference between what we see with you with your military career being a firefighter, and then our the star of our show in our video that we watched before the show started, she is a firefighter in her civilian career, right? So what is it like knowing that there's an option for you to be able to do something like that? I don't know if you've ever kind of explored that idea, but to know that like you could do what you do in the military as a firefighter and then also carry a full-time traditional career in the civilian sector as well. Like that's a pretty awesome opportunity that the Air Force provides.
Absolutely. And Eglon's largest Air Force base, fire department in the continental United States, right? So we had a lot of civilians that were in the Guard and Reserve, and they would do their time at the same firehouse that they're in working as a civilian. So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. All righty. This one's kicking it back over to the rest of the show. We're going to do the back and forth where we put your questions up on the screen. We answer them live with our guests, but make sure that you're putting a Q in front of your comment if it is in fact a question. That way we know what to put up on the screen. And that being said, and without further ado, let's get our first one up on the screen right meow. Do you get taught intelligence gathering in SERE? It's a great question. Senior Ware, I think he might be frozen on his feed. So you want to take that one, Sergeant Hetrick? Because I think we know the answer to that one. Oh, nope, he's back.
Looks like he's back.
All right. The question was,
I can hear you okay.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. Then I'll let you take the answer.
So good question. We do not get taught direct intelligence gathering techniques. We do some preparation of the environment stuff, which I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here with that, but basically preparing for personnel recovery before it actually needs to be done in the areas that we're going to be operating in. But we do work hand in hand with intelligence. So working at the Joint Personnel Recovery Center on my last deployment, I'm sitting at a desk right next to an intel body who I can speak to daily and get intelligence updates. It really keeps me in the loop with everything that's going on.
Sure. Sounds like there's a lot of communication with the intelligence community, but not necessarily direct intelligence gathering on the part of SERE, just more of the communication aspect. So everyone's in the know, you know, threats, and you're best able to move in those theaters. That totally makes sense. Great answer. All right, let's do the next question. What is that senior airman skincare routine? Oh my God. Yeah, no, he's older than all of us. And He's making us look bad. And I don't know if you've seen the old shows where I used to rock the mustache, but I'm kind of glad that I don't have that, because that mustache puts mine to shame. So I might as well just get to the part where you tell us your skincare routine. Like, what do you do?
Well, let me just start by
like
telling, informing the crowd that this is not a normal person. This is an NFL athlete, super genetics. So I'll just preface with that. Go ahead.
Hey, it's just a lot of fresh air and sunshine, and eating good, healthy, grass-fed rabbits, I think is what does it for me.
I'm waiting to see that one. I'm waiting to see that question show up in the comments for sure. All right, great answer. Sunshine, spending time outdoors. That sounds like if that's what you like to do, and not just you, Airman Ware, but like if anybody in our audience likes to spend lots of time outdoors, specifically in like the mountains, you want to look into SERE. That's a pretty cool opportunity to spend a ton of time outside and doing all kinds of stuff like that. So, all right, let's get the next question up if we can, please. What is the most difficult part in the SERE selection course for candidates? That's a great question.
It depends on the candidate. So some people will struggle with the physicality of it, because we're doing workouts on top of just our basic rucking and other training that we do. And others will struggle with the teaching aspect of it. So you have to be really well-rounded to be a SERE specialist, and shore up where you're weak and build up your strengths as well. So there's not really a cookie cutter answer for that, for what they struggle with the most. It really depends on the individual.
Cool. Great answer. All right, let's do another one. There we go. What physical aspects should one focus on? I'm guessing that's a SERE question, so Airman Ware, that's all you.
Sure. And I think my last answer kind of applies to this one as well. It's important to be well-rounded. So doing your cows, doing pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and running, which are going to be your initial fitness tests. But then there's a lot of physicality that goes into building a shelter and cutting down trees and rucking and all sorts of different activities that we do within our career field, jumping out of airplanes. You have to be pretty physically fit for that as well. So, strength training, having a strong core, and cardio, all aspects of that are involved in what we do.
All right, nice. Just be ready for a hard go of it, as long as you're in pretty good shape and you're aware of what your body's capable of, and it's more than your average person. You think you should probably be set up for success pretty well there. All right, let's get the next question up there. U.S. Air Force recruiting. How do I know what career fields to start looking at to evaluate before I go to MEPS next week? Congratulations on going to MEPS next week, but Sergeant Hetrick, this is all you.
Wow, yeah, congratulations. It's really difficult, right? We have over 200 AFSCs. There's pretty much anything you can do in the civilian sector, you can do in the Air Force. Really, what it comes down to is, your passion. What drives you? Where do you think you would best fit in? Talk to your recruiter. Fill out your, they have you fill out this survey of kind of what you're interested in, what your likes and kind of your strong suits are. And that will help drive the conversation for what AFSC is right for you. And then also, most importantly, you have to be open to the needs of the Air Force, right? Because it's not just us finding you a job, right? It's us doing something bigger than ourselves, joining a community that's bigger than ourselves. And ultimately, we do it for the safety of our nation and being the greatest Air Force, air power in the world.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, next question. I'm glad we got a recruiter question in there. Thanks to everybody out there. Appreciate that. Keep throwing love to our recruiter. Let's get it up there on the screen. Can you be a firefighter in the United States Air Force Reserves? That is a great question.
Yes.
Sorry, Edric, that one's all you too.
Absolutely. So I had guys in the Guard and the Reserve. So throw two plugs out there. You can be a firefighter in both of those. Yeah, absolutely. And they work hand in hand. So in Eglin Air Force Base, my first unit, we have Duke Field, which is one of the 8 stations there. And they were basically, that was the reserve unit up there in Duke Field.
Gotcha. Very cool. What, so I know that as a civilian and as a firefighter, you got to be ready to kind of do anything you need to do to make your shift, right? As a reserve or guard, is there a possibility that you could be pulled out of inactive status to go do firefighter work? Is that something that could happen?
Pulled out of inactive status. Like you mean pulled on active duty orders?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, everybody hears about wildfires and stuff going on. Anytime there's any national disasters or anything that happen,
Yeah.
we can activate firefighters, and they would go and do that. So, wildland fires in California and Texas. We had a bunch in Goodfellow when I was there in San Angelo, and we brought in guard and reserve folks to come help out and assist. Absolutely.
Very cool. You mentioned Eglin a couple times so far on the show as being a really big part of your career before being a recruiter. How many different entities exist out there? You talk because the Air Force defines things largely, whether it's by the space that it takes up or the number of people or agencies that work together. Talk to me a little bit about what it was like being part of a firefighting community responsible for that size. And I know there's a lot of both. It's a lot of square footage acreage and also agencies and stuff like that out there.
Absolutely. I think there's at least 2 wings. It's 53rd Test Wing and then the normal wing. It's not ringing a bell right now what it is, but
you ran yourself into a corner with that one.
Yeah,
it's like there's 2 wings out there. Got it. Let's go.
Yeah. Deploying 3 times.
I got you.
It's yeah. Anyways, there's a the responsibility is huge, right? So we run it's a big test base, so they have a lot of munitions and stuff, a lot of acreage, and they'll go and drop bombs. There's a lot of SEAR specialists out there. They run around and do their things. It's the swamps, right? So that's some of the terrain that they're looking to use. I mean, Rangers are out there. There's controllers out there doing their thing. But yeah, we have not only on the Air Force side, we do all the base stuff, but we also do like you mentioned earlier, the MOUs, the Memorandum of Understanding. It's like if the civilian sector has an issue and they don't have the resources to cover it down, then we'll gladly hop in and help.
Gotcha.
Sometimes there's little towns that don't have a big ladder truck, and we have a ladder truck. We can take it in there and go do our thing. Or they're not full time maybe, and we are, and we're really close, so we can just hop on over. So it's pretty convenient.
Gotcha. All right. Last question. The firefighting stuff is kind of fascinating to me. I can tell you guys can tell out there that I keep asking questions about it. And I got one more, and I'm going to try to stay away from it unless somebody from the audience has asked a firefighting question. But tell me your most challenging, most memorable experience on the team as a firefighter.
Oh man.
Story time.
Yeah. No. Well. So there's a couple that are good stories, and then there's a couple that are, not really good stories. But I'll tell you a cool, exciting one. First industrial building I went on. It's probably 2 a.m. It was one of those MOU deals. We were driving off base, and as it was, I don't know if I can mention the name or not, but I'll just say it was a flower shop off base. And as soon as 2 a.m, I'm still wiping the stuff off of my face. I've got all my gear on. We're pulling up, but it's not too far. It's probably a 6-minute drive, maybe 5 minutes. And we pull up, and I've got my pack on already. And then, as soon as we
welcome
pull
back.
up, the windows blow out of this thing, and then from
Holy
there
cow.
on, it was like game on, right? I threw out all my stuff, and I was just super excited to go and fight fire side by side with the civilian firefighters and some other military firefighters that was there. I'll leave that one short since we got Airman Wear back.
No, that's all right. I may make some time to hear the rest of that story because that's pretty cool stuff. I mean, like, talk about thrill. If you're a thrill seeker, geez, like there are some opportunities in the Air Force. If you got adrenaline issues, man. And there you go, airforce.com. Scan that QR code, go check it out. And one of the cool things, plugs for the recruiters out there, if you go on airforce.com, there's a little tab there for the recruiter locator tool. You can type in your city or your zip code or whatever, and it'll bring up a map with all kinds of little dots on it, and those will be recruiters, Air Force recruiters that are near you. You can, scale that down and say you want to look at enlisted recruiters or officer recruiters. You can look at reserves, guard, and RegAF. But there's a recruiter out there for you. Use that tool and go talk to a recruiter because all this cool stuff is on the other side of that door. So go check them out. All right, let's see if we can get another SERE question up there and cross our fingers that Airman Ware's connection holds strong. On prior service, want to re-enlist. Any advice for getting mentally and physically prepared for SERE? Prior service. Welcome back question. When you get there. Yeah.
So we do take prior service, to my knowledge. Definitely go through your recruiter for that. I think Sergeant Hetrick will be a good resource for that process. But as far as SERE goes, whether you're prior service or not, the process for getting mentally and physically prepared is probably the same. Depending on what branch you're from, you're probably used to the things that you need to do to get in shape for being in the military, having a career in the military. So take all that and then look at the standards that we have. Those are online for SERE specialists for what they need to do for pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and the run time, and start working towards those. And be aware that those are the bare minimums. That's to get you in the door. And I would highly recommend going above and beyond with those numbers so that you can pass those tests on your worst day.
Gotcha. I just want to take a moment and thank everybody for, putting up with us. I mean, we got some connection issues that we're working through, but I promise you this information is worth sticking around for. Airman Ware, thanks for your patience as well. I know it's a little difficult when you don't even know that you got a rough connection. So thank you. And we're going to keep pushing through this thing. We're going to fight it. We'll make it happen. But because I've seen these questions that are in here, and trust me, we want the answers to these. So without any more of me talking, let's get one of those up there and let's get another answer. What's the craziest thing you've had to eat? See, this is what I'm talking about. Go for it.
Oh, gosh. I've enjoyed almost everything that we've eaten in the process. Raw mussels are probably one of the grosser things. If you're hungry enough, you'll eat pretty much anything they put in front of you. So grasshoppers are great. I love ants, although there's not much to them. Scorpions are like land shrimp, I call them. But you get all kinds of things. Goat, chicken, rabbits. Had a mountain lion one time that the Department of Fish and Game brought out for us that had been hit by a car. So it's just anything you can imagine we will consume.
Yeah, you're talking about things that move around and make noise and stuff like that, but they even teach you how to eat trees, like parts of trees that you didn't even know were really edible. And I'm not just talking about gnawing on the bark, or the leaves, but there's all kinds of crazy stuff that you can eat. It's pretty nuts. That's a cool one. Thank you for asking that one. That's a great question. All right, let's get another question up there. Are all SERE people outdoors fans? Camping rules. Well, sounds like Mike Rolls 20s is a camping fan, so he likes to be outside. Maybe he should go check out SERE. But are all SERE guys, are they all outdoorsy, or are some of you guys, nah, that's not my thing?
Yeah, we sometimes will get folks that grew up in the city. They struggle a little bit more, for sure. I think it should be a prerequisite that you're comfortable being in the outdoors before you become a SERE specialist. And then, hey, if you're not, maybe after a little bit of time in the woods, you fall in love with it and you do become an outdoor person.
That's a good point. Yeah, because if you're not really used to it and you spend some quality time out there, you can get used to it and you can start to crave it real quick. So, all right, let's do another one. Do you have any tips on building trust among team members? I think this is a good one for all three of us to answer, but let's let Sergeant Hetrick go first.
Dang. I'm just noticing this is coming in from LinkedIn. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Just knowing you have a LinkedIn account is good. Okay.
Building trust between, like, let's just say for the sake of this question, peers, right? So people on your team, how do you build trust among the people on your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to stay consistent. If you're gonna do something, if you say you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it. Just maintain consistency. Don't let people guess. Well, is he gonna do this? Is he gonna do that? What is what does he normally do? If you stay consistent, you normally do the thing you're supposed to do, then people will trust you.
There you go. Airman Ware, how about you? How do you build trust in your teams?
Well, that was a great answer from Master Sergeant Hetrick. Definitely, I'd say you got to be open and honest and communicate well. The more you keep people in the loop, the more trust that gets built there. When you try to hide what's going on from people, it's not a great environment to build trust. So that would be my one tip.
Nice. No, I agree with that. Those are actually both really great. I think mine would be keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Because when people learn that they can rely on you, they will. And if they're people that matter to you, those are the kind of people that you need on your team. So, and then having that backwards, if you both share that, it's really, really nice to have people in your corner. So, all right, let's do another question. Will I have time to go to college as a SERE specialist? Ooh, that's a good one. So that's
that's from USAF SEAR there.
The YouTube channel.
So absolutely. A lot of my coworkers are actively going to school right now as they still function fully in our shop. It's encouraged, as a matter of fact, from all of my leadership that you should continue to further your education as you go through. And really, you're getting money from the Air Force to do it. It would be a waste not to take advantage of it. And so there's a lot of support from all our leadership to continue that process.
Yep, I can hear. Go for it. I can hear you
right?
chomping at the bit for it. I was like, go for it.
So, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the pre-show was SERE is the only course, is the only AFSC that folks come in and they are instructors, right? And to be an instructor, you have to have college, you have to have an associate's degree, and you have to have a teaching degree, and you have to go through these certain courses. So anybody who joins the Air Force, you already enrolled in the largest community college in the world, and you get credit hours towards everything. So it's not, will you have time? It's mandatory that you do it in order to be successful in your job. So he needs to have his associate's degree completed to be an instructor.
That's pretty cool.
And what's your associate's degree in from the Air Force? So I know you went to college in a big university, but for the Air Force, what's your CCAF?
Yeah, it is in survival. So all of the training that we get throughout our pipeline is credited towards our CCAF as well. So that's my second associate's degree.
I didn't even know that was an associate's. I'm going to go to college and get a degree in survival. That is super cool. All right, let's do another one before we lose Senior Ware. Do public affairs specialists have to go through SERE school? No, I can actually answer that one. Public affairs specialists do not have to go through SERE school. I am a public affairs specialist. One of what's called a special duty assignment of public affairs is called combat camera. And as combat camera, you have the option to, or you have in the past, it changes from time to time, to become aircrew and to become aircrew certified. And in order to make those flights, in order to fly as aircrew on those flights, you have to have the same training. And therefore, you do have to have SERE training. So while public affairs as a general AFSC or career choice, you do not have to go to SERE. If you do get picked up for combat camera, your chances of going to SERE increase dramatically. There are a couple other public affairs specialty shred-outs that you do have to do SERE for as well. And sometimes you'll do pared down versions of SERE prior to deployments and stuff like that. But to go through the more intensive, longer SERE format, those are a little bit different job descriptions that come inside of public affairs. So hopefully that answered the question. All right, let's get another one up there. Does any SERE training transfer over to normal life? If so, what part? That is it kind of seems funny on its face, but that's a fantastic question. What kind of stuff do you apply to your personal life, your home life, that SERE training has taught you?
Well, that is an excellent question. I would argue that every aspect of it translates over to everyday life. One, in the confidence that I gain when I'm traveling overseas or stateside, no matter where I am, I'm confident that I'm going to be okay if something bad happens.
Yep.
And then I try not to use the resistance training too much at home, that aspect of it. But I think that there's certain parts that you can fit into work life as well.
Yep.
So all of it.
Yep. And by the way, when he's talking about his resistance training at home, a lot of that has to do with when you're being interrogated or when you're in a stressful situation, having a conversation with somebody. I don't know when that would ever happen at home life, but sometimes that's your training, and some of those principles can help you keep yourself out of trouble and maybe out of the doghouse. So, all right, let's get another question up there. We've got time for probably 2 or 3 more, and then we got to sign off of here. But let's get a couple of these out of the way. Hello, quick question. If I don't get the MOS, Air Force's AFSC, but we'll forgive you for this one, that I want, am I able to change in the future? That's a great one. Sergeant Hetrick, this one's all you.
All right, 100%. So within your first enlistment, that's your best opportunity to change the AFSCs, and then find something that you might be more inclined to like, I guess. But I will say this: whatever AFSC you go into it with an open mind, because you have no idea if you're ever going to like it or not. I've heard so many stories of people coming into primary AFSCs that they didn't really care for on paper before they joined, but then afterwards, that's all they can talk about because they love it so much.
Yep,
and I'll leave it at
100%.
that.
No, I know a lot of people that did that. They come in with one thing that they want, they don't get it, they get something else, and then they end up spending their entire career, 20 years, doing what they didn't even think they wanted to do because they loved it and they were good at it. So it's really cool stuff. All right, let's do another one. SERE training. Do you jump out of planes? Not if we can help it, right?
Yeah, the goal would be not to. So if you're talking about the SEAR specialist pipeline, that is a part of our pipeline. So we go to Army Airborne School after we finish, we put our berets on. That is a part of our training. For what we teach others to do, they're not jumping out of planes unless it's a part of their job already. So TACPs, pararescue, those guys do quite a bit of jumping. And we do have the opportunity to go to free fall school and jump master school as well as SERE specialist. So you get to do a lot more jumping if that's the route that you want to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Very
I
cool.
want to add on there too. Like, there's 2 different things that we talked about and we kind of clarified at the beginning, right? Being SERE qualified and then, going through the course, and then being a SERE specialist. So as a SERE specialist, you will absolutely be able to jump and have opportunities to jump. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I even think the parachute program belongs to the SERE specialists. Is that right?
So we do have our parachute shop up there at Fairchild, and they jump out weekly as a demonstration for the students there. But we typically go through Army parachute training.
Right. So Army owns the jump schools, right? But then, as Air Force SERE specialists, you go to them. But I think also, and this is particular to parachute testing, right? Nobody really wants to be a parachute tester, but they do test out new parachutes. And I want to say that the SERE folks own that program. And I may be wrong. I might have to fact check that one, but
here's a great chance for me to shout out. Here's a great chance for me to shout out our chatters. We got Pam and Ray that typically are in our chat that do fantastic work on behalf of the United States Air Force Recruiting Service. And this is a perfect opportunity for everybody to tune back in after the show is done and watch for one of those comments to show up, because we are out of time. And I got to say adieu to everybody that's here. But I'm going to ping Pam and Ray and be like, hey, guys, we got to get an answer for Sergeant Hetrick and Airman Ware and find out if Air Force owns those parachutes and what details we have there. Also, I saw one pop in, says, do you have to eat bugs? If you want to, but yeah, if you'll want to. So on that wonderful question and answer, and that's for ADHD debates coming in from YouTube. So that's for you, bud. I want to say thank you so very much to both of our guests today, Senior Airman Ware and Master Sergeant Hetrick. You guys have been awesome on the show. Thank you for putting up with us in our connection issues and stuff, as we're like just struggling to finish out the show here. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day and making sure that we can give our audience out there quality answers and quality attention that they deserve as they look at the Air Force for a possibility as a lifetime adventure. So thank you one more time to both you guys for taking time out of your afternoon, spending with us, and hopefully we will see you on a future show. So with that, and everybody else out there, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you guys back here on October 29th on Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we will be talking about all things services. Now, that sounds like a super broad word to describe something, but their job covers so much of what happens on a military base, on an Air Force base every single day, that without them, we would fall apart. I would not be able to do what I do at the gym without them. I would not be able to do what I do at the dining facility without them. I would not be able to do what I do at my own building for work without services. So if you want to learn about the backbone of the infrastructure of the Air Force and what it takes to make us tick, you need to tune in October 29th, 2 o'clock. That is a Tuesday. And until then, we will see you there.